Hello everybody, I'm Oliver from Blentus.com and here I am with a new tutorial. This time I'll show you how to create 3D chocolates in Blender. This is basically the same tutorial that the Valentine chocolate one made of 3 different parts, but what you're watching is a faster version. While in the other one I explain a lot of basics and go quite deep into some subjects because it's meant for beginners, in this version I will fly over some things just to make it faster in the case that you are already into Blender and have the basics under control. You'll learn how to model a 3D chocolate, how to simulate physics to end up with a pile of chocolates, shade them so they look like chocolate, and render the final scene. Oh, lots of chocolate, right? Let's go with it. Let's go model it. So, let's start by deleting everything I have in the scene, except for the camera and the light, that for now I'm going to select them and send them to the 5th layer with M. Alright, press 7 in the numpad to go to the top view. And let's start by adding a plane. Now I need to really cut this into 2 halves, delete one of the halves, and now add a mirror modifier. There we go. Okay, now we are going to enable clipping, so these vertices are stuck in the middle and we can't just grab them apart. And let's select all of them, let's bring them down, scale them a little, and now we are going to start modeling the actual heart. I'm doing this because I want this pivot point to be at the middle of the heart. Okay, so I will just drag this shape a little. Good. Control tab to switch to edge mode. And now let's just start pressing Control and click to extrude these things. All right, I think this will be the basics for now. And now I can start paying a little more attention to the shape and adding some detail. Let's go with this. Just add a division here. There we go. And maybe another one here. Something like this probably will do. Okay, pretty good. Now I need to fill this area. So let's start by switching again to edges. Select these 2, fill them, select these 2, fill them. And now I have here an interesting situation. I have here 2, I have 3, okay, and this could be used as the corner. So what I'm gonna do is to select these 2, fill them. Now I'm going to press Ctrl R to draw here 2 different loops. And I'm going to select the vertex, but before I'm going to come here and check the snap element to vertex, okay? And I'm going to also enable this one. This option, the auto merge, will make that whenever I put a vertex right in the same place as another vertex, they will be merged automatically. So let's just drag this and hold Control to snap. And there we have our filled area. This is perfect. Now let me just arrange a little bit these polygons. Okay. All right, this is good. Now let's press A to select everything, E to extrude, and extrude this up a little, something like this. And it's now time to start working on the subdivisions. So let's press Ctrl 2, and Ctrl 2 will automatically add a subdivision surface modifier in level 2. If we press Ctrl 1, we will switch to level 1, and 3 will switch to level 3, and so on. Okay, we can also disable it by pressing Ctrl 0. All right, keep in mind that this only affects the view. It won't affect the render. All right, so now we need to define these shapes a little better. I will come here, add a loop with Ctrl R, and maybe do something like this. And now with Ctrl Tab, let's switch to the face mode. Press Alt, right click to select the loop. Press E to extrude, R, and Alt S. And just drag this apart. Alt S will just scale the faces from their normals, using their normals. Okay, there is something going weird in here. Like these faces here should actually be welded. So let's delete them. That's right. And select these edges. And bring them to the middle. There's something wrong here. Let's just delete that edge. Okay. This is weird, but okay. So let's select this edge, press subdivide, bring it here, and hold Control to weld it here. Now select these 4 vertices because there is just an empty space here. Press F, and we will have it filled. That's good. Select this vertex and bring it outside. Same with this. And same with these 2 ones. All right. Now I'm going to define a little bit this area here at the top. So first I'm going to add 3 cuts with Control R. I just scroll the mouse wheel, and this will increase or decrease the amount of subdivisions. So there we go with 3. Press right mouse button to cancel the movement, and now with Alt right mouse button and holding Shift Alt right mouse button, we can select 2 different loops, which I'm going to press G and bring them up a little. With G, C, I'm going to bring them up. Now press Control Tab to switch to the face mode, select these faces, and press E to extrude and bring this up just a little bit. Okay, good. Now we need to define a little bit these corners. So press Control Tab, go to the edge mode, and with Alt right mouse button, we will select that loop. Shift Alt right mouse button to select this loop here, and same with these 2 loops. So I can now press Control B to bevel, and by holding Shift, I will just make a precision movement. So I will just make it so little, so these edges here are pretty close to each other, and they define this corner very well. And we will end up with something like this. Okay. Let's jump to the face selection mode, select this one, and maybe scale it from the pivot point. Press dot in the keyboard. This will switch the cursor to the 3D cursor, which is right now in the middle. If you want to reposition it, just hold left mouse button wherever you want to put it, and it will be there. So now if I scale, I will scale from the 3D mouse cursor, and I want to make this a little bigger. And maybe add a little bit of a curve to this. So press S again to scale, something like this. And maybe we can try to add a little curve to this one too. Now, this cursor is here down there. I only want the scaling to work on this, on the Z axis. Okay, so press Shift C, and this will block the Z axis and only scale in X and Y. That's exactly what I need. And this is a pretty cool chocolate. Okay. So let's now come here and press smooth. Right, so this is smooth out. And it looks like we only need to add a little corner here. Right, this is a curve and we need corners. The way I can fix it is by pressing Control R and adding another edge and getting it closer to that corner. So now we have a nice corner there. However, we have a crease in there, and we can probably try to fix it by taking these edges and these vertices here at the top where we don't need those creases. And let's press G twice, and this will let us slide these vertices so we don't have that crease that much defined. We should do the same with these 2 ones. There we go. Okay, perfect. Here, these ones, this is maybe too much here in the back. So I will select this whole thing. And here's another trick. I can just click here and come down here, control right mouse button click, sorry. And so the Blender will automatically select the shorter route between these two vertices. Press G twice, slide them a little, and that'll be it. Control right mouse button, GG, and just open a little bit. Now, just to give it a little bit of realism, just pick these two loops, press G, C, and move it down a little bit. And now, come here, add another edge loop, move it here to the border, and bring it up. Or maybe just leave it there, but then make another one, get it close, and now get another one, and this one, move it a little up. All right, this will give the sensation that the filling, we can press G twice to bring it like this. This will give the feeling that this is has been be done in a mold. Maybe we can select these vertices here, and instead of going and selecting one by one, what I'm going to do is to press C and just paint the selection. We can increase or decrease the brush size with the mouse wheel. Right click to go out from that mode, and this just bring it a little down to make a little bump in there. And there is a slight more problem here. I'm going to just weld these edges, and I think it is now solved. Yeah, looks like it is. Perfect. So now, before I jump into the physics simulation, I need to select it and apply the mirror modifier. Make sure that you don't want to keep making changes to it, okay? I don't want to keep making changes to it. I'm happy with the shape, so I'm just going to press apply. So now the heart is all real mesh. There is no mirror generated by Blender, and this is important because otherwise the physics simulation would only calculate one of the halves. The other one would intersect with all of the objects. Okay, so it's now time to jump into the physics simulation. So let's go right here and enable a rigid body, and this will be active, in fact, and convex hull. This should do for now. So, okay. Now we need, if we press Alt A, this will fall down. Go back to the beginning. We actually need a plane to contain this falling. All right, but this won't do anything if we don't set it up. So we need to come here and add a rigid body simulation, but instead of active, I wanted to make it passive. Because if it's passive, it will just receive the collision from other objects. And if I move this, for example, let's press comma to go out of the 3D cursor pivot point. If I just rotate this a little, you will see how now it reacts. Bam. Pretty nice, isn't it? Pretty nice. Okay. Press Alt G, Alt R, and now press Alt D and start just duplicating this object with Alt D. So we make instances, and it doesn't take as much memory as duplicate, which we would do with Shift D. So press Alt D, and also it has another advantage, and is that if we want to make to add any change to this chocolate, we'll just do it in one of these copies, and it will affect all the rest of them. All right, something like this should be enough. Okay, maybe just a few more. Okay, let's check what happens with this. Oh, so amazing. However, they fall down. Not really nice. Not really nice. And if they fall down, is not interesting. So what we need to do is to come here, scale this, and just select the border. Okay, maybe instead of doing this, because it will probably extrude the whole thing, what I'm going to do is to select the face and press I to create an inset. Hold shift, so it's just like this, and now I can just select the border, grab it up, and scale. Okay, and we will create some kind of recipient for these chocolates. And I think we can actually create a bunch more. Alt D, C, and bring them up. This not needed, and even more. This keep in mind that this might depend on your computer, so don't get it too far. It will also be pretty intensive and pretty. It may, you know, be sluggish, the viewport, if you have too much. And now let me show you what happens. This is being calculated as a convex hole, so the holes are not being calculated in the meshes. No cavities are being calculated. So we need to select the floor, and instead of convex hole, select mesh. And so now these chocolates will fall down correctly. Okay, this is pretty nice, but I want this to be smaller. Let's see how they fall down now, because I want them to really accumulate in here. Some of them may fall down, only one. Okay, not too bad. And we're going to come here, and we need a little longer simulation so we don't lose anything. So let's go to some 600, press E, so we can make this longer. And now, if we keep doing the simulation, you can see that it stops at 250. This is because when we created the simulation, this was the limit of the scene. So we need to go to the physics world and change the length of the simulation. For that, we need to go to the scene, I think, yes. And here in rigid body cache, the end frame, we're going to set it to 600. So now it will actually continue. You can see how it continues, and they are just stopping there. Okay, so what I need to do now is to come here to physics panel, right? You don't see the full name here, but it says physics on it. And I'm going to apply the transformation and remove the rigid body tools. This means that now all of these objects are just staying here like this. The animation is not calculated anymore. There are no more physics simulations. They have been, the movement has been applied into this specific frame. So we don't need to just you know, deal with the simulations anymore. We don't need them really. We already set it up as we wanted. We have a bunch of chocolates standing in a surface. Okay, so now it's the time in which I have to decide for a good shot, and this might be it. Something like this. Okay, with this heart here, and this one we can probably move it a little. Something like this, or this one here, maybe just invert its position. Let's just rotate it in Y local, and for making a rotation in the local Y axis, I will just press Y twice and press 180. This will invert it, all right, 180 degree, and I will just move it down here and rotate it on the C local axis, something like that. Okay, now there might be some intersections going on right now, but really I don't really care. This one I can move it like this. We just want to find a cool shot now. it doesn't really, oh, I switched to the wireframe. So I don't care that much about the intersections right now. I really care about the making it look good. So now that I have this point of view selected, I need to bring my camera to here. And the way I do it is by pressing Ctrl-Alt-0 in the numpad. And so my camera comes here. Now I press Shift and click on this fifth layer. So I can come here and move the camera just a little bit. And Shift F to go to this mode so I can select it. Okay. And maybe change the field of view, right? The focal length or something. Just make it more, a little bit closer, something like this. Okay, and I think this will be enough for now. Now, the next thing I need to do is to create a material for this object. But first, let's come here and I will switch this lamp to a sun lamp. And I will just try to jump into the render mode. Make sure that you are into cycles. And I will also go to the render tab and switch to GPU compute to make sure that I'm using the GPU. And let's go to sampling, and I'm going to add here 50 samples for the preview. Okay, so this looks like a good lighting to test the material. So I will select just this heart and hold, press a slash in the numpad to isolate this heart. And now I'm going to work on the material. I'm going to be quick. Okay, I'm not going to take references from real chocolate or anything. I will just going to be very quick and explain this very fast. So let's add a new material. Let's call it chocolate. Chocolate. Oh, I love chocolate. And I don't have chocolate at home right now. This is a torture. All right, so I need to create first a diffuse color. Okay, let's add some brownish color, a chocolate-like color. Something like that would do, I think. All right. Depends on how dark you want the chocolate to be. But I really think this one will do. Perfect. Now, I want to stress that I'm using the node granular add-on. All right. So whenever I press Control-Shift left-click, it will connect the output of that specific node in which I click to the output so I can preview what happens. Okay, so if you see me doing it, it's just a node granular add-on. You just need to enable it. It comes bundled with Blender. So go to Shift A. Shift A, let's go to shader, add a glossy shader, Control Shift left click, and this is what happens with the glossy shader. The roughness might be too much. Maybe I want it to be a little sharper. Okay. The color will be white. That's okay. And we need to add these reflections on top of the diffuse. If we use a mix shader, what will happen is that it will have diffuse or glossy. But if we go for the middle of the thing in the gradient part, it will not look really realistic, right? It's not really that nice. We could still work with the mix shader, but what I will do in this case is to go with an add shader. So let's just add an add shader, add this here, and this will actually add the color of the reflections on top of the diffuse. However, the way we can control the factor, let's say there is no factor in the add shader, but we can control it with this color here. So instead of just making this darker, which would kind of achieve the effect that we need, we are going to add a Fresnel effect. So let's press Shift A, add a input, layer weight. We can also add Fresnel, but yeah, let's use Fresnel actually. So if we press Control Shift left click, I can preview this effect of the Fresnel effect, and this should be quite okay. Let's plug it in here, and I think we already are getting a pretty nice effect. You can see how we get a little reflections in the grazing angles, which is exactly what we need. And I will pass this through a converter, color ramp, and this will allow us to control exactly the intensity of this Fresnel. So if we drag this, we will get darker areas here. And what this means is that the darker areas will affect the color of the reflections, and a black reflection is no reflection at all. If you check this out, you can see how now we only get some reflections in the grazing angles. If we bring this down, you can see how that reflection increases. And this, I really want some little reflection at least here in the middle, and so I will just increase this, but just a little, a very, very little. And now let's add one of this here in the middle, and maybe bring it here just to have a little touch. And this maybe not that much reflection, so select it, and instead of white, I will darken it a little bit. Okay, good. So this would be the chocolate thing. Pretty good. And now I need to add a little noise for the displacement. So press Shift A and go to Texture, Noise Texture, and connect the factory here. That's pretty good. We can control this with Converter Math, pass it through a math. And here, let's select Power. So now we can control the amount, okay? Something like this should be enough for now. And if I go here, another of the features of the Node Granular add-on is that it lets us add a texture node setup here for any texture. So if you press Ctrl T, it will automatically add the texture coordinate node and the mapping node. So it will allow us to change how this is working, because here, let me just look. Okay, you can see that here in this angle, this texture is being a little stretched. So if I just make it smaller in the Z-axis, you can see how we can actually scale it, and it now looks much more natural. And this is exactly what we want. You can see how when we get to grazing angle, the heart works with the reflection. This one, let's actually delete this one, yeah. Okay, good. So now I'm going to get out of the local view. Let's just give Cycles a moment, because it has to load all the other chocolates. And I have to select all the rest of them. Let's go to the 3D view, select everything. And with A, if I select everything, the previous selection will stay as the active object. All right, so we are going to press Ctrl L and click on Materials, and this will link the materials from this specific object to everything in the scene. Okay, we already had it because it's instances, but now we have these beautiful chocolates. Okay, and now the very last few details. I'm going to select the camera, and I'm going to add some little depth of field, but before of that, I'm going to actually control a little bit more the lighting. So let's duplicate this light with Shift D, rotate it, so we have a light from the other side. And this other light is the one that we are going to click on Use Nodes and add a little bit of pinkish color, something like that. And just add a 2. Okay, so we add a little bit of pink reflection there, and maybe decrease a little bit the size here. There we go. We can play with the rotation in the Z-axis to see how it looks better. Okay, and now select the other one and use nodes, and this one will be a little bigger, maybe 1.5 more intensity, and I will leave this one in white color. All right, because I want it to be kind of, have this white light, so we see the white reflections of the chocolate. Okay, and I will set it here. I like this kind of shadows. We can probably try to increase this 0.2. Okay, so the shadows are more soft. And let's go to the render, and we are going to clean those white spots. There are two ways that we can clean them. We can use this clamp indirect option. Let's try with 3, for example. Even less, try with 1. Okay, it's helping quite a lot. So they are disappearing. And then we can go to, let me check, light paths, and disable reflective caustics. Okay, if we disable reflective caustics, refractive are not really that important in this scene because we don't have refractions, but we do have reflections because we are using a glossy factor in this material. So if we just deactivate them, the bounces of this glossy won't be treated as caustics, won't be actually be calculated, and so they will have no effect at all. So now, even if we disable this clamp indirect, you can see that the dots are not appearing. So I just wanted to give you these two ways of achieving that effect. Okay, now the next thing is to select the camera. This is the next and last thing. And wow, half an hour. Okay, we are in the limit. So I'm going to the camera options here, and at the bottom I need to select one object as the focus object, and we can select it from a list if we had them named, but we have just a bunch of objects that are unnamed. So what I will do is to click on this eyedropper and just select this heart, and now increase the size to something like 0.2 or something. Okay, let's go to even farther, like 0.3, and this will create the depth of field effect, and it will be focusing in this heart. Okay, the ones farther away will be blurred, and the ones closer from the camera will be also blurred, right? So we can focus on this specific heart. Okay, now this is kind of dull. Okay, we might add a spotlight here on top of this heart to give it a little more protagonism or something, and in fact we are going to do it. So let's just press Shift A, go to the lamp, add a spotlight, and come right here. Just put it here in front of that heart. I think it's this one. And let's now increase the strength like a lot, like 50,000. Okay, this has been too much. 10,000, still too much. 2,000, maybe a little more. Okay, now increase the blend so we have a smooth transition from the highlight to the rest of the scene, and just rotate it a little bit so it's more focused on that heart. There we go. And we might just position the light in a different angle just to give it a more, get it a little closer. Okay, that's good. We are getting a better look at this heart now. And the last thing I want to do with this light is that this shadow here is very, very sharp. So I want to just increase the size to something like 0.5. So this shadow is a lot smoother, maybe 1. So the shadow is really smooth. And there we go. There we go. Maybe decrease the cone. And the cone size, when we reduce it, it will focus the light more on this heart, and we can just before we finish, I think we can select this light here, and actually is this one here, and I'm going to increase its intensity to give it a more pinkish look to it. And this one I'm going to rotate it. All right. And I will give it for done. All right, now you know the technique. You can improve it, you can keep working on it, and you can improve the lighting or the shape of the chocolates, whatever you want, you can do it. You already know how to do it. Or if you want to make a crazy simulation, whatever, or improve this shader, okay, I really recommend, in this tutorial, I will just, I have been just showing you the technique, but what I really recommend is that you pick some photograph of a piece of chocolate and try to mimic that with this technique. All right, use this technique to replicate the chocolate shader and use it in the right way to make it look much more realistic than it is now. And so, well, now it would be just a matter of increasing the samples and launching the final render. So I hope you liked it. And well, this has been a very special tutorial because I've done it for beginners and for more advanced users. So there is a very slow version in which I explain in a lot of detail every single step. And there is this fast version in which I think, third part of the time I do the same thing. So well, it's been a special tutorial. I just felt like doing it, and I hope you like it. So see you soon and happy blending.